Okay, thank you very much everyone. Welcome back after our little coffee break. We're going to be talking about bundling and aggregation over the next little while, the strategies behind it, the role of operators as the super-aggregator, which is one of these terms that has sort of come to the forefront really over the past few years, drifting into maybe some of the topics we covered in our earlier session, personalised content discovery, and making for a compelling user experience, and of course discovering some of the lessons learnt by those who have successfully implemented a super aggregation strategy. We've got a large panel here, varied in experience. Let me introduce everybody to you. I'll start at the far end here with Dan Latropa, who is the sales director for mainstreaming. Next to him is Festival Akatos, who's head of TV services at Antic Telecom. Leif Bjorklund is SVP of entertainment at UC in Denmark. Alongside him, Janet Jaeger, CEO of Green Streams. Take a bun up with this one. Alexandro Casal Gomez, who is product owner of STB Apps, set-top box apps and native software at KPN, Netherlands. And finally next to me here we have Memina Kundic, who is Group Content Strategy and A1 Explore TV lead for A1 Telecom in Austria. Welcome to you all. I'd like to start off really on the sort of super aggregator journey really, because there has, started in the last panel really, been a coming together of the regular linear services with so many apps on every operator's platform, really. Again, this is kind of the direction that operators really these days have no choice other than to enter into.
Yes, absolutely. When you look at it from a strategic standpoint, I would say as an operator, you need that attractive TV and entertainment product. And that is more than just TV and non-linear TV use cases. It's your video on demand, and it is your third-party content. So in our view, as an operator, you have to become that home of entertainment for your end customers, so that you have something really attractive that you then bundle with your broadband products, with your mobile products, all with, at the end of the day, three business goals in mind. You want to attract new customers, you want to keep the ones that you have, and you want to increase the ARPU that you're getting out of these customers. And we see bundling in connection with the meta aggregation as one of the key elements, the key success factors for operators to achieve that goal.
So there's two sides to it then, by the sounds of things. There's what you get on the television set, and basically not giving the customer any excuse to go to any other service. If they've got a second set, give them another set-top box there, or a dongle, or whatever, or the app to use with the smart TV in the spare bedroom. Once you've got their TV sorted, well, you're expanding into broadband, obviously, mobile, and touched on in our last session, maybe smart home applications as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think that can be the next step. Initially, I really think that for many operators that might not have the size, for example, of a Liberty Global, there is a lot of power to do these things in a very sophisticated way. We see, however, the same need and the same strategic necessity for a bit smaller operators as well. And there we really see the first step is to really pull off the content aggregation, including the premium third-party content that has been mentioned before, so that for your end customers, for your broadband customers, you bring that additional home of entertainment and make the overall bundle attractive and sticky.
And I guess this Leif applies to small operators, as Janet said, as well as the larger operators, because these days, if people don't like what they're getting from an operator, they can go buy an Apple box, or they can go buy a dongle from Amazon and get the services there instead.
Absolutely. but I really would like to start from the other end. I mean, if you think about it, what do consumers actually want today? What are the pain points that they are going through every day? The two pain points generally. They're paying a lot for content. And the other thing is that they don't actually know how much they are paying, because on top of the TV subscription they already are paying for, either directly or through the housing association, which is very common in Denmark. They're also paying for a big number of streaming services, generally. And they have no control actually.
And not necessarily through the operator, because the operator bill, and people may subscribe to services. They may do it on another. I think it's the Wall Street Journal, which has declared American Father's Day as the day you should look through your bank statements to check absolutely everything of all these small subscriptions. And I know I'm terrible for getting this business service here or a subscription there. That's another challenge.
Absolutely, and even worse, they are not even aware that they can actually pay for all those streaming services through their operator in many markets. The other thing that all of us actually can recognize is the pain of actually finding something to watch. I mean, we just have heard a panel on this topic. Now, there are two basic needs that we as operators can serve our customers with. One is the aggregation of content itself. The other is actually finding that content and actually saving the time and energy for the end users on spending the time actually consuming rather than searching for it. On the first topic, however, there's another value that we as operators can actually provide to our customers, and that is the control of the budget of the media spend that we all have on content and entertainment. And it's not necessarily only entertainment content, it's all kinds of content. And that is really the position that we have taken, as you see in Denmark, being an incumbent, but also being a household brand. And that is something I think that can be used actually in many markets, providing another realization to consumers on what aggregation actually means.
I guess the other pressures over the last few days, or the most recent one, Paramount Global letting go of staff, but we know that across the board, Warner Brothers Discovery and other operators too, they've all cut back. They're all reducing staff, the amount they spend on content, and the margins, I guess, for people like your company in Denmark and for others, they're being squeezed too, so everything is sort of closing in on us.
No doubt about that. I mean, if you look historically, I mean, in the old days we had special stores for everything. You went to one place to buy eggs, to the next store to actually buy milk and so on. Then we had supermarkets. Now fast forward that 100 years and now we have hypermarkets. That's really the position we as operators can take, being the storefront from all these kinds of services, offering all of it at one place in a nice curated way. That also means, of course, that we can live with the squeezed margins because we can sell more on volumes. So not only to more customers, but also more products.
I like your analogy on the supermarkets. It's kind of almost come full circle insofar as supermarkets, hypermarkets, and now I can use an app and somebody can bring me around some of my groceries on a bicycle within half an hour. It almost feels like the VOD element of it, if you like. Alexandra, I guess operators generally are in the best position to aggregate the content on behalf of the customer. In theory, you can all do a better job than the likes of I can, sitting in my chair at home thinking how things can be organised best. What's the sort of the balance, if you like, and also the aggregation of the bill, as well as it was touched on earlier, as to whether or not Netflix is in your bill or you pay separately for that?
Yeah, so it's working, I think so.
Hope so.
Yeah, and yeah, so I think we operators are in a very good position to become aggregators. On the one side, as you say, we have the billing integration, so we have a billing relationship with the customer, so we can, the customer can easily subscribe and unsubscribe from different services, and that's becoming increasingly relevant with all these OTT providers and different services. And on the other hand, we are in a very good position to aggregate, to have partnerships, not just with OTT providers, but also with linear channels. And you were mentioning an Apple TV box. I think that's something that's missing in an Apple TV device, that you can combine easily linear with on-demand and OTT content in one device. So in this context, we launched a new proposition a couple of months ago, which we call KPN TV Plus. It's based on an Android TV set-top box, and there we give the customer the option to switch on and off the linear channels, just as any other package. So you can
interesting. So just like
Netflix.
It just sounds somewhat Scandinavian in the plan of these sort of individual options.
Yeah, so you can say, okay, I don't want to have on a monthly basis, I want to have linear or not linear, or Netflix, not Netflix. So, I mean, this flexibility is done through our partnerships and also the billing relationship we have.
And I'm assuming that your billing system can cope with this, because if this had to be sort of manual intervention, it would be an absolute nightmare as people switch, off and on, depending on whether or not there's a new series of The Crown or something.
Yeah, well, indeed. So I think in general lines, looking at all these different OTT services we have to integrate with, I think, from this perspective, we have worked on a unified way to do this. Otherwise, in order to lower the efforts to integrate different players.
And the bill is presumably itemised. One might assume available online or through an app to save on the paper for customers ordering a lot.
Yeah, so everything is on one bill, on KPN bill. So if a pay-per-view, different packages, so everything is a very good overview of a single bill.
And I guess in these sort of straitened times of the cost of living being as it is in all countries really at the moment, our ability to continue to grow, but there will be customers who are finding it difficult and will say to themselves, I'm going to miss off sports for the time being, my team is doing rubbish, I'm going to put a hold on this and come back next season.
Yeah, indeed. So we also see a huge popularity of pay-per-view. So maybe users don't want to have a subscription, don't want to be tied up to 15, 20 euros per month. But there is a match of their football team they want to watch in a weekend, and then suddenly, maybe 10 minutes just before the match, they have an impulsive purchase on a pay-per-view match.
In the UK, we rebelled against football pay-per-view during lockdown. The Premier League had to change their minds and not do it. It was a fabulous amount of people power going on that. First of all, aggregation going sort of beyond entertainment. I know it's one of the things that you're doing, and the phrase here, which I think is brilliant, I have to say it, is bundle the unbundleable to be relevant. What do you mean by that?
I like the term bundle the unbundled. Us as a medium-sized company, I would start a different way. All of us know the standard approach of bundling, dual play, triple play, possibly quadruple play, combining standard services like internet, IPTV, VoIP, possibly mobile services. This is all of us know. Us as a medium-sized company, we need to come with different approach, and we do not call that we create bundles, but we call it that we create community. So on top of the standard, let's say triple play services, we decide to give our customers benefits not only within their households, like internet, TV, VoIP, whatever, but decided to give them benefits even outside of their flats, outside of the houses. That's why we have come with the idea of sharing services, which gives the benefits to our customers. Obviously, everybody can use our sharing services, but our customers have got some benefits. They pay lower money within their subscription fee. They have a few minutes included, and that's how we created e-bike sharing services, mechanical bike sharing services, scooter sharing services, and e-scooter sharing services. This way, customer as a community is able to get the benefits inside and outside of their houses or flats.
When you say you created the services, did you literally go out and set up a scooter company, or did you partner with somebody else and brand some of their scooters in your colours?
We actually bought the vehicles, scooters, e-scooters, mechanical bikes, and so on. created, because what is the most important part of these vehicles is the lock, basically, which includes GPS module, which communicates with our servers, and we know who is our and who is not our customer. So customer goes to the streets, see the vehicle, scan the QR code, the lock is opening, he uses the vehicle, we calculate the minutes, we calculate the possibly prices or whatever, how long does he use the vehicle, he parks somewhere anywhere, and he logs the services, and he logs the logs behind him. So we did not create the scooter company, we bought the vehicles, installed the in-house developed GPS lock, and deploy it within the streets.
Is there a worry that some staff get, if you like, almost sidetracked on this and you forget about the core business of delivering TV and communication services to people?
Actually, this brings us that kind of community which would be missing some kind of services if they weren't with us. So we try to create the feeling within the customer. If it's not with us, he's missing something.
Okay, interesting. I want to tell a quick little story before we go into our next batch of questions. You might have noticed on Saturday was the coronation of King Charles III in the UK, and I decided that watching the Ultra HD coverage was a good idea. But in order to get the BBC's coverage of that, I had to go into the iPlayer in order to watch it. So then I had to work out which of my devices could actually get the Ultra HD coverage, which was one. And once I'd done that, fantastic. Turned it on, and with about 5 minutes or so, it was starting to buffer. And obviously I didn't particularly want to miss it. I suspect my wife would have got rather annoyed if she'd just seen a whirling circle thing going on. So I gave up basically and just opted for boring HD on my regular Skybox. And to Dan, I guess, and I'm hoping you're not involved in any of the chain. I'm sure you wouldn't have been, because it'll work a lot better. But it does underline the importance of the quality and experience of any service.
Yes. So actually, what you mentioned is very important, because you can have the best content out there, but if it fails when you turn it on, people eventually will give up. And the way that we see it is we play a very vital role being the CDN. So for us, customers are paying a lot of money for these types of services, and we want to make sure that they get the best value, and we want to keep the customers engaged. So the worst thing is, like you mentioned, if you have a big event, we hear this a lot in the US. Last year this happened with Amazon and the NFL. I mean, it's one of the biggest events, and people are trying to watch it, and the stream is cutting off. So that's when it comes to the quality of experience. So for mainstreaming, what we've done is we've really focused on quality of experience and to deliver video streaming at the highest quality. And we do not want to then lower the quality. If you want to watch it in 4K, we want to make sure if you're paying for 4K, you're getting 4K. We don't want to turn it down to 1080p or even less. So that's very important.
It's interesting. I noticed when I was going into the iPlayer and checking the settings were okay, it was telling me that it would adjust to the best quality which was available. The problem was no quality seemed to be available.
And that's the problem where before people were doing best effort. We don't want to do best effort, we want to do best quality. So again, if you're paying for the highest quality, you should be receiving the highest quality. We don't think it's fair to the customer that they're paying for something and then we're degrading their quality just so it can watch. And really, it's keeping them engaged, because it's happened to all of us where you're watching, I don't want to name any apps, but you're watching an app and it cuts off. So you hit play again, it cuts off again. Second or third time, what do? You say, well, I'm going to switch to option B. And then you're saying, well, I'm paying 10, 15, 20 more euros a month. Why am I keeping the service? And then you're risking your customer trying out someone else's services. So that's the most important thing is for us is delivering at the highest quality. And a good use case that we did this with was DAZN. Years back, they had the best content out there, but it failed. So when they came to us, they evaluated us and they said, okay, what can you do for us? and we had to go back to the drawing board, show them what we could do, and we built out a network for them, and now we're delivering. We're not all over Europe, but we're targeted right now in Germany, Italy, and Spain, and we're still expanding. And for them, because they're paying millions, hundreds of millions of euros for these sports rights, and we have to make sure that the customers, and if you see the subscription fees, they continue to increase.
And as we know with the zone in Italy, the regulator gets involved when the pitches don't happen.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. Is you can take away every right from us, but if football's not delivered, the government steps in. So
yes,
we take that very seriously.
I must finish off my coronation story by saying I had another go for the coronation concert, and it worked fine all the way through. So we got the Ultra HD experience for that. Amina, let's talk a little bit about recommendations, if we can. They're tricky because we discovered in our last session you've got content coming at you from all over the place.
Yeah, that's definitely true. We try to mitigate that. Also, what you mentioned at one point in time is we are small operators, small countries, and that definitely does not help in terms of localization, in terms of, a lot of things. Even if we want to aggregate something.
Because I'm guessing you want Austrian localization, not German localization, for example, on the little nuances on things.
We don't only have Austria, so we cover Austria, Croatia, North Macedonia, Serbia, Slovenia.
That adds even more, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's 7 countries. So that makes it a bit complicated, and these are 7 different languages, also more complicated. But what we started doing is we have the same platform, so the technical part of it is the same in all of the countries, with the exception of one, but let's keep it, it's Belarus, so it's a bit more complicated. But all of the other countries, they have the same SDB, they have the same interface, the front end is the same, the back end is the same, everything. So when we start integrating something, be it an app or aggregating content or something, we only have to do it once in one country, and then that is rolled out to all of the others. Recommendations, on the other hand, are totally different because you can't do one for all in 7 different countries with 7 different mindsets of people, 7 different...
I guess countries do have different, I guess it's just national character, isn't it?
Yeah.
People prefer, and it may simply be the choice of content on a Friday night compared to Saturday.
Yeah. So, for example, Croatia and Bulgaria, football, sports in general, extremely important. Slovenia goes skiing, so it's totally different in different countries, and the languages are different. So the recommendations really have to be local, which is why we have local content people. You see, I'm from group content. I do the content strategy for the group, but everything that concerns only one country, so recommendations or a specific local channel that is local to Slovenia, that is handled by the Slovenian team, Croatian team, Bulgarian team, etc. And we do have very different approaches. So, for example, in Bulgaria, we are very big in sports. We have our own sports channels that we also do sell to other operators, wholesale. And we do our own production. We have a production company. It's a big operation. In some other countries, we're not that focused on sports or football or something because it's just not that relevant.
Always somebody else has all the rights first. It's,
Yeah. Let's not mention the Balkans countries and the sports landscape there. But yeah, so recommendations really are very, very local with us, and the local teams handle them because there is no point in trying to do it centralized. They would just fizzle out.
how do you deal? It's something which I guess is only relevant to certain markets. The different character sets and accents. I know sometimes I had one the other day. I wrote an article, looked fine, published it, and then I got a call to say, these letters are looking funny. Do all of the systems, I'm sure your system does, but this is presumably something you have to think about. You don't want to have text ruined because the system doesn't like an accent or some mark.
Yeah, some characters are definitely different. You have these marks above the letters or something, so it's different, but it's all tailored to a specific market. So everything that is made centralized is also, looked over by the local teams and carried out in the best way. So that's okay. I mean, in terms of recommendations in general, I think this is, it was the first time of the content discovery and everything. I think this is very, very crucial, very important. We've had situations where we've got the best content, we've spent a lot of money, and then there was no traction on that. Just because our subscribers, they just didn't know that we had it, and essentially. This was before we had the centralized system of the same STBs in all of the countries, and the content discovery, we had these are countries with legacy systems. So we've had IPTV, we've had cable, satellite, OTT, DVB-T in some countries. The STBs were different. Even in one specific operator in one specific country, we've had 3 different set-top boxes at one point in time. It was just absolute chaos. So if you try to do recommendations or content discovery in this type of environment, it is extremely complicated. You have to have a lot of people doing it. You have to take care of it's just not tenable.
I guess it's impossible to swap out all of these boxes in one go. There's so many different reasons. But are you able to track over time as to people who are then able to discover that content that was hidden for whatever reason when they had these older set-top boxes? Is there, if you like, another list of the benefits of giving people a nice new shiny box?
Yeah. So we see a really big uptake in using even, the what you expect in a normal any operator, like interactive services, catch-up, things like that. We see a big, or we've seen in the past, a big uptake when subscribers have an STB and system that works quickly, that works well, and that really enables this content discovery and really seeing what is there. So we've really had to recalibrate in terms of our thinking, in terms of we just thought, this was 10 years ago, but still it's a very good lesson, I think. You can't just buy the best content. You have to have a way of presenting it, a way of using it, and not hinder your subscribers in using what you bought essentially for them, just because your user experience is the worst.
It's a very, very important area. I wonder if we could look now maybe at some of the partnerships in a little bit more detail. You sometimes wonder, is it the app that needs the platform, or does the platform need the app? Gernot, I think you've got some experiences in Bangkok where you can give a couple of examples from.
Yeah, not so much about Bangkok, or we heard about Netflix. I think Luca mentioned it in the first panel, that for operators that are, I would say, less than 1 million, it's very hard to get Netflix on board. If you're less than 1 million, you will be a tier 3 and the Netflix nomenclatura. So that is very hard then to get that on board. And what Netflix, why they kind of can't work with these operators is probably not because they are mean people as such, but because it's just too many of these operators, and if you want to integrate individually each of these operators, then it's just overwhelming and you cannot do it. So what Netflix then came up with and what they presented for the first time in Bangkok is what they call self-serve. So it's an operator scaling program specifically for Android TV operator tier set-top boxes that, if you adhere to certain rules, gives you the Netflix integration. And we've been working with them and discussing with them over the past year, and actually they asked us and our friends from 3SS to do the demo for the launch of Netflix Self-Serve, where they presented it, and that was the Android TV Summit 22 in Bangkok. So this is something, and I think we will get to this premium third-party integration a bit more. But for an operator that falls into this category, of below 1 million, do you still need Netflix and the other guys for your meta aggregation strategy and to be attractive? Yes, you do. So you need a way to do that, even if there is no way for you to reach that 1 million customers. And that's something where we really think that's a good way where we can help operators make that product more comprehensive, more attractive by having Netflix available in the first step on their operator tier set-top boxes, so that you can go out there with a more complete, more attractive product.
I'm thinking here that the smaller operators become more attractive to Netflix now that their subscriber growth is not as good as it used to be, and now that, of course, they've got lots of friends around.
Again, if you look at it from a strategic standpoint, when I'm at Netflix, I have issues about my subscriber number growth, I would say, and about my profitability. So the operator can be my best friend in being a sales channel. And often what you see as well, that for premium OTT services, their churn rate, when bundled with operator products, is lower than standalone when booked directly OTT. So this is a setup in which these premium OTT guys, yes, they can be a threat for the operator who takes a sit and wait strategy. So if you just wait for the threat to go away, it will be hard for you to be successful. But they can be an asset as well, and there can be an alignment of the premium OTT guys and the operator, because it complements the service scope of the operator, and the operator is an attractive partner for the premium OTT guys.
And do you think that in the same way that Netflix, entirely reasonably, went for the big operators first to do their deals, now they've done this agreement with Android, but they're up there, will they look to other platforms other than Android over time to do a similar kind of integration, or is the technology simply something which is really more Android focused anyway?
I think it's really a question that I can't answer. I can't speak for them. From a technical standpoint, it doesn't really matter whether it's Android or RDK. It's just that I think to make the level of complexity manageable, they decided very clearly that for the time being, this is something that is available for Android TV operator tier set-top boxes only with this self-serve. Of course, there are custom RDK integrations. If you're big enough, they will still talk to you, but when you have your 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, 500,000 customers, then that's going to be hard.
Yes, so I'd like to know, when you're speaking to the big operators and their apps, is it an easy discussion, or have you had struggles?
As a medium-sized operator, we have to accept the fact that the big giant like Netflix, Disney, and all others, they say, okay, we have some certain limit of approximately, either with a few hundred, it depends probably on the territory, and they give us the message, it's not the time to talk with you guys. We say, okay, we can do nothing about that. To be honest, a few years ago I was afraid that if they refuse me, what is going to happen with our television services. But as the time passed by, we experienced that nothing has actually happened. Since they run B2C services, I mean Netflix and all those big giants, whoever wants to have it, they can get it directly. And they still have other television linear and non-linear services with us, medium size operators. So we are okay with that. And now we are in times when we are talking with local VOD providers, smaller VOD providers, and
how does the experience compare between local and international in terms of
totally different approach, because we're getting feedback from those smaller and local ones that guys, look, since B2B cooperation is more stable in terms of financial running, basically. If they have it like a B2C approach, customer can watch some movie, title, series, whatever, then he unsubscribe. If it's with us on a B2B level, he's stable because he pays all together with other subscription fee he's got for internet, for IPTV and other kind of services. So now we are in talk with or implementing local services or smaller services, and that gives our customers sometimes even bigger benefits as to have it with the big giants like this and Netflix.
Leif, just to pick up really on my point I made to Gernot a moment or two ago, as the apps, the Netflixes, the Disney Pluses, as they look to expand their subscriber base, there seems to be a sense, I saw some research about this from Media Vision about how it's affecting the Nordic countries. It's people like you who are providing the storefront these days in order to get extra business in for Netflix, Amazon, for others, which maybe a couple of years ago you might have gone directly to Netflix for.
It is quite interesting actually how the market has developed, and I guess the situation is different for different streaming companies right now. We have, for example, Amazon Prime Video, which hasn't been very successful in the Nordics so far, but is picking up. I would say that we are much more important for a company like them than they are for us. On the other side, we started to also see this happening with the big ones such as Netflix. I would say that Netflix actually is not as important for us as we are for them anymore. And that's a change from how it used to be like only 3 or 4 years ago. What is also very interesting to actually notice is that the approach that these different players are taking in terms of how much control they want to have about integration and how often they actually change those integration points. You see, you all know that Netflix is probably the hardest of them all. And I think some of us would recognize that Viaplay is probably one of the easiest of them all. Not really only being a local player, but a quite significant European player now. So the level of effort required both by the other party and by the operator actually plays an important part in how strategic they become for us. And this is something which keeps changing. In the previous panel we heard about Amazon Prime Video now offering metadata to operators, which is something that Netflix would never do. That is going to change, I'm sure.
You think it will change? One of the factors in is the fact that there are, well, it's not that long ago, it was just Netflix, and then it was Netflix and an emerging Amazon, I don't know what to call them, Amazon Prime Video, we all know we made Amazon for short, but now of course there are, I feel like countless other ones, Discovery, there's Disney, there's HBO in some markets, there's Sky Showcase in others, and this, as they're all jostling for position, not just with the customer, they're jostling for position with operators like you.
I mean, if we again actually refer to the hypermarket metaphor, I mean, eventually we are going to have a quite blended experience with customers. And in order for offering such a blended content discovery experience, we need to have a metadata from all of them. And we need to be allowed to actually present the content, the assets from the different providers next to each other in a way that makes most sense for the consumer. It's exactly like you would do in any hypermarket. Then there is, of course, opportunities between the partners for promoting or displaying, exposing the content in different ways. But that's like the next level. And then we again come back to the retail metaphor where you can use different kinds of campaigns and things like that to really promote some partnerships more than the others. But we need to do that on the terms which are acceptable and beneficial for the end users, because otherwise we're just going to play games with each other, which we have been doing for the last 20 years.
I mean, I guess there's definitely mutual benefits for both operator and app for being together. Do they still have a sort of wow factor when they're part of the platform? People, ooh, hey, what? They got Netflix, fantastic, or they just like blend in with OOF or something after a while.
Yeah, this is a bit complicated in our part of the sea because we are not the cool part of the sea, Poland, which is like important to everyone. We are the smaller part of the sea. So some of the streaming services, and I'd say like 90% of them are still not localized in like most of the CE countries. So for example, Netflix that we've all been mentioning, this is localized in Croatia, that's it. Bulgaria, nothing. Slovenia, nothing. Macedonia, nothing. If you don't want to watch it in Croatian, you're watching it in English. Which, yeah, there are a lot of people that know English in these parts, but those people already do have Netflix, you know? Those are the younger people that subscribe by themselves. So the people that we are really focused on as a company that offers the whole experience of you having an STB, or with us you don't have to have an STB, but you know, it's more of a family experience. And in a family you have people that are not only young, they're middle-aged, they're older, and those people in most of the cases do not know English enough in order to be able to watch Disney Plus.
So localization is, once again, is
extremely important.
Just as important as it was, I don't know, when Discovery started appearing in the 90s. So.
Yeah, extremely important with us. So you have really a lot of people in, for example, Bulgaria that would watch Disney Plus if it were localized, but it is not, 0%. Which is why, you know, there are some new streaming services now coming that you've mentioned, Sky Showtime, or there are smaller streaming services coming, and also the local streaming services that are really focused on the local markets and localized.
Do you think they've got their eye on what the large, you know, having looked at the larger entities and basically said, well, we can't compete on this, however, we absolutely can compete on localization or being more active in the market?
Yeah. So there are local flavors, local differences. I'd say like Disney is very important globally. When you think about kids content, you think about Disney, but in the sea, in this specific part of the sea, when you think about kids content, you think about Nickelodeon, because that is what has been available for the last 20 years in the market, and it has been localized.
I think that's the challenge. I'm just thinking about it because you've got, I guess, UK, Nickelodeon content is on Paramount Plus. I think in other markets it finds itself on Sky Showtime. But whichever brand you have, you're not instantly going to associate that with Nickelodeon.
Yeah, that's true. And also there is this problem in our country. If you want to watch a specific movie or a specific show or something, and it's not readily available in your recommendations or somewhere, I mean, you know, some things are always on HBO. You know that Game of Thrones is going to be on HBO. But like a specific movie that you're interested in from 2016, where is it? If you try to Google it, you're going to find results for the US. At best UK. But where is this movie in Croatia? No idea. This is very complicated to find. Which is why I think this is our role, to try to help our subscribers really find the content that they're interested in, that is localized and that is available to them, and that they don't have to search for on 6 different streaming services. I mean, I specifically, like me, privately, I have all of the streaming services available in the territory where I live in, and I have no idea where anything is. Like, the flagships, yes, but everything else I have to turn on the streaming service, try to find it. It's not there. The next streaming service, try to find it, it's not there. So, to be able to create an environment where all of these streaming services are included, our ambition is not just having all the streaming services because we want to have them all and it's cool to have Netflix. This is not our focus. What our focus is to have all of these in one environment, and just to make it easier to find it, make it easier to enjoy it. You know, this is our point actually.
I find a nightmare being series 1 to 4 on one operator and series 5 to 6 on another. And then obviously being an American series, it's cancelled halfway through season 7, and you never know the end anyway.
And something is on catch up, and something is on SVOD, and something is on Netflix, and you're like, come on. So this is a long-winded answer to your question of It's not really the coolness of having it, it's the ease of having it.
Yes, and which arguably translates ultimately into that coolness. Why don't we talk a little bit about aggregation strategies, maybe for a short while. Maybe starting, because I mean like this, with technical difficulties. Dan, what can go wrong if people don't pick the right technology or set it up in the correct way?
Well, it goes back to the first thing you said with buffering, so it comes down to capacity. So again, we can have the best content, but we need to make sure that we place our capacity in the right regions, the right place that fits what the users are watching. So if the demand is, we'll say, live sports, we know that we're going to have a very, very high peak for a short time, versus if it's a series that's on every day, the capacity needs are not as crucial. So capacity is not everything, but we need to make sure that we prepare for this, and that's very important. And that's why we work with the partners and all the telcos, the broadcasters, everybody, and we really like to look at the viewing patterns and see, okay, who's watching what, where are our needs at, and then of course we have to plan for unseen events. The Queen of England dies. This wasn't planned. All of a sudden we're going to have a high peak in news, so we have to make sure that we have enough capacity that when people try to watch online or try to watch a show, that it doesn't start buffering, and again they're going to switch and start watching other content.
Yes, that's right. At least with the coronation, it may only be once every 70 years, but at least we knew when it was. It was kind of helpful. Not that it helped me get it so easily.
Yeah, no, but it's very important. So for us, we're very excited with what everyone here on stage is doing, because without this, then mainstreaming can't step in and say, okay, let's work together and let's make sure that we deliver our customers what they deserve.
And Dan, from another perspective on this, you need to make sure that you have the key TV channels on the platform and the OTTs alongside them, and actually making sure that it's a seamless move from one to the other. I think you've got some experience with where are we now? With I think Elisa on this.
Yes, I'd like to get to one point that Vladimir mentioned about the local content. That's something that we see as well, and Elisa in the Baltics in Estonia is a good example. There we are integrating, I think, 60 different local VOD providers into the product, plus the international one. But as well, this local content, that's something that we see as well. There is no use, and there I agree with you, there is no use in just having Netflix on board and then think, miraculously, my product is going to go through the roof.
If we build it, they will come, that kind of strategy.
Yes, you definitely need to have that meta discovery as well. You have to be able to find what you're looking for. You need the meta personalization. You should be receiving recommendations for stuff that you're looking for across these silos. And you definitely need the local content, which by default is in the local language. And it connects, it's something people connect with. So bringing this together is something that we are doing in this project. And it really allows a medium-sized operator who is, however, in their market, a very relevant one, to create that value for the end customers and to become and be that home of entertainment that takes away the necessity to have like a dozen different subscriptions for different things, but it's a convenience layer as well on the contract side. That's what you mentioned as well. And that's something where we see the operators in a very strong position to pull that off. And I'm repeating myself, that makes the whole thing stickier, and it really helps you make your business long-term successful, because just being able to provide fast broadband, that's very nice, but it's a commodity.
It's interesting on the localization thing. Last night I was having a bite to eat after yesterday's conference here, And I'd completely forgotten that there's a local version of CNN for the Czech market. But actually, if you think about it, it's the most logical thing to do for a company like CNN, or others for that matter, to actually put something into the Czech language, sizable enough country, and actually people are going to want things in Czech rather than in English, most of the time at least.
And I think that's where probably all European markets are different from the UK. In the UK, all the global content is in the local language.
Well, mostly with the
most
productions,
but
yes.
but it's a problem that in the UK you have to a much lesser extent than you have in all the other countries, and the smaller they get, the more relevant this topic of localization, of local content, of local language, of discoverability of local content in the local or international content in the local language becomes, and that makes the challenge for operators in these countries a quite interesting one.
Absolutely, every press release I get from the UK regulator, Ofcom, is also translated into Welsh for the benefit of. I don't think I've ever met a Welsh. Anyway, that's beside the point, I guess, really. Alexandro, the key to being a successful aggregator, how would you quantify it? Is it having all the apps? Is it having the local content? What's KPN's take?
I think it's a combination of both. So everybody wants to have access to the content offered by the major apps, the Netflix, the Prime Video, but also the local players are producing and offering a lot of content, and I think many Dutch people feel identified with this content because it's talking about their daily life, things they know, they are familiar with. So for KPN we need to have both on the platform. And besides having the apps, I think metadata and rich metadata is also a pillar to become a successful super-aggregator. So we have, it has been said that the Prime Videos, the HBOs, they are sharing the metadata, but I think we need to have a uniform metadata. We have seen that the level of quality of metadata from different providers varies, and this has impact on the service that we are offering.
And when there's localization from an international provider, do you then get their program information in the Dutch language, or do you have to do that yourselves sometimes?
No, we already get it.
From another party, or
normally it's in the original language and subtitled.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense. And that's what Mina was mentioning earlier, when you've got lots of different markets to cover. That's
I think the big markets, the movies and content is dubbed in the local language, but smaller markets like the Netherlands, I think they use almost always subtitles.
We mentioned earlier, because you touched on it, your bundling strategy, which seems to have sort of evolved almost into this kind of Nordic style. I think you don't really have the votes anymore, do you? When people get to have a public vote for which cable channel they provide they want. So
It still feels like that.
yeah, I guess it's a lot easier now for the individual to do so. How has your bundling strategy evolved over the years with the advent of the apps?
We were quite early actually with bundling linear TV with streaming apps. I think we were the fourth operator in the world to have Netflix actually in our a la carte bundle. We launched a portfolio called Blend Cell, where you actually blend your own bouquet of content already 5 years ago. I mean, we recently updated that with even more flexibility. Right now we offer a service where customers buy 10, 20, 30 or 40 points, which can then be exchanged for linear channels or different types of streaming packages. What we see is a full blend of some people only using those points for linear channels, some actually taking 1 or 2 channels and then using the rest of the points for Netflix, Viaplay or whatever they happen to be interested in. What is interesting to see is that people, on top of this, customers actually have a possibility of deselecting and selecting another type of content 30 days after they selected something. And we're starting to see a rotation. So people using HBO Max maybe for 2 months or 3 months or something like that, replacing that with Netflix for a year or so, then going back to HBO Max, then exchanging that for Viaplay and so on.
How does that then work in terms of, I presume on some of these things you have revenue share agreements with the individual companies behind the apps. If somebody's stopping and starting all the time, how does that affect things?
We don't have revenue share type of agreements. And the funny thing is that this is something we didn't actually think was possible a few years ago. Then we observed that it is actually the interest of the streaming companies to actually be part of this rotation. Because if you do lock in customers, there's only so many services that they will be able to afford. The feeling that we want to give our consumers, and they have confirmed that this is the feeling that they have, is that all the content is available to them all the time. So they can deselect after 30 days any of these channels. So for example, if the football season starts, you can actually select those TV channels like TV3 Plus in Denmark and actually see the football season. And then once that is done, they can actually replace that channel and take something else instead. So it's really the interest of the content providers to be part of that rotation rather than not being part of it. We have a sister brand called Telmore, which is a fighter brand, which has a different kind of strategy in how to bundle content. They have hard bundles on top of their mobile value propositions. So we see quite clearly how different customer cohorts are attracted to one model or the other. But the lifetime of the customers is way longer in our brand, where we actually offer the full flexibility, but at a higher cost.
Thank you. We have 10 minutes or so left of this particular panel, so it's time for the set-top box question. Set-top boxes versus apps. I don't know, it's an ongoing question really, isn't it, as to whether or not the set-top box will stay with us. We obviously see the apps nipping at the heels, and obviously anybody who was here yesterday will know we were discussing connected TV, which is another sort of nail in the coffin of the set-top. But has its uses, I guess. Dan, what do you think? Will the set-top box still be here with us in 10 years' time?
Honestly, I think no, and if it is around, it will be a very small percentage. So I look at this as what happened with Blockbuster. So we didn't think that the day would come when we would stop going to the video store to buying videos, and then Netflix came along and made it much more simple. So I think the market demands that OTT eventually will take over, and I think that's going to be a very big challenge for everyone here on stage. So, because we have to keep up with what the customers want, what they need, but it's definitely coming, and I think we have to make it simple for the customer. As you mentioned, getting the content from multiple different sources is very annoying. So if I'm watching a season and I'm watching it on one platform, but then season 3 and 4 is on a different platform, I think that bringing it all together. So I think unicast is going to be the viable solution for this at the end.
I guess you've got the security of it really in part, haven't you? I can't remember the last time I played a DVD, but at least if you've got a DVD, you know that the contract with your provider isn't going to expire, and you suddenly find yourself without the content that you thought you did have.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is because before it was very defined on where you would find your content. You know that if you want to watch a certain subject, you went on this channel. So I think defining the channel list is going to be a big thing, and also for us as the solution provider, there's going to be a big demand to keeping up with the capacity needs.
Yeah, I think the DVB is doing some work in that direction of trying to provide listings of what's available in OTT in a kind of, I guess, a traditional form.
Yeah, and so the last thing for me is, for us, so we're definitely trying to work with the right partners. As of recent, we're working with Arkiva in the UK because we're trying to get ahead of what we know is coming. So we're talking with the broadcasters, and we know in the years to come that this is going to get even bigger. So we have to prepare ourselves ahead of time.
Yeah. Laszlo, what are you doing on the Antic network? You have one I might imagine it's a mix of set-tops and apps, and probably only going in one direction.
That's right. We started 20 years ago as a set-top box developer and manufacturer. We developed a few generations of set-top boxes for various television distribution platforms, and now we see that the last generation of set-top boxes on the level. Set-top box is still number one, but we see the trend is decreasing in terms of sold set-top boxes to the final customers, and the customers rather prefer already developed our application in various operation systems, whether it's a Vita, whether it's a Tizen, whatever other operation system. Obviously, the customer doesn't have to pay for expenses to buy set-top boxes. So with application, he has only one remote control. He can manage everything: TV set, application, Netflix, whatever he's able to download and use it. Level 4 of responsibility for any, let's say, broken element is missing, because everything is TV set faults basically. If the remote breaks, he goes to the TV set seller. So for us, it's rather more beneficial, and even for customer. The important key is to have the similar level of services on TV apps as we have on a TV set-top box, and this is the challenge which we need to balance it, and this is the important thing. On the other hand, when set-top boxes one day will disappear, there's a question, because all of us we develop and deploy application on various stores. The question is, because the sharing model of the operation system one day will come, and at that point.
How far away would you say you are from that?
I would say it's not far away. I would say 3, 4, 5 years maximum. At that point, when we are not the, let's say, the owners of set-top boxes or not the managers of set-top boxes, at that point, owners of those operation systems will become the kings on the market, because they will be managing the sharing models, and we need to do a lot of energy to negotiate a fair sharing model with those owners of those all kind of stores. And this might be, we might not see that as an issue right now, but in a few years' time we're going to be sitting here and talking about that as an issue, that Tizen takes much more money as they deserve, and things like that.
Alexandra, you mentioned earlier your new Android box. Was there, I don't know, conversation within KPN of, sure, we may not bother with this new box, we'll do everything on an app now?
Yeah, well, personally I think the death of the set-top box has been announced for, I think, the last 10 years.
Was it Mark Twain who said rumours of my death would be greatly exaggerated?
Yeah, so it must be a zombie or something, because it's living for 10 years death.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, the set-top box is still there, and I think from KPN perspective, the set-top box gives us the best way to offer a uniform, consistent user experience to our customers. I think also from customers.
Is it giving it that KPN look so people know?
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you are moving, if you are buying a new TV, if you are switching to another device, we want to offer the same user experience on any device. What I said before, also mixing different kinds of content, linear, on demand, and offering that in a great UI. So from our perspective, the set-top box will be there, and it's not a hurdle, but it's more or less the best way to provide our super-aggregation strategy to our customers.
And I guess with your Explore service and many different markets, you'll be looking to effectively give the same look and feel on all sorts of devices. You mentioned earlier, of course, that in some markets you have quite a collection of different generations of boxes to deal with.
That was before. Now
it's
same one everywhere.
New and improved Explore, so but that presumably gives you a great advantage now.
Yeah, now we have the new one everywhere, but so we have it's the same feel and experience on the STV and also on the OTT and on the Smart TV app, where we have the Smart TV app. So it's it looks the same, looks like the same environment. It's just over different technologies. I think I agree with like you and also you. In terms of, in some countries, in some systems, in some providers, yes, STB will be obsolete. In the others, you're going to have to pry it from their dead cold hands. So it will be a variety of experiences, you know. It's the same with us. We try to offer a different type of service to the people that actually want it. There are people that have no interest in the STV. At this point in time, people that are 25 and really want to have everything on their phones, this is the OTT app where they have it. You have people that have really good fancy TVs, they want the Smart TV app. It's just easier for them. And then you also have people that are 65, do not have a Smart TV, and they really just want their STV in order to be able to use some of the things that they can't have on their TV. So, and also technology is in general, I mean, I'm not a technology person, so take this with like a grain of salt, but technology is moving very fast and also kind of very slow. Depends on how you look at it. Right?
Everything changes and everything stays the same.
Right? So we always expect that everything will be done very quickly, and then it does not happen. And some other things you expect that it will take decades and decades, and then something changes in an instant.
Whoosh.
To be able to predict what will happen with one specific thing is, I do not like to predict the future because it never ends well.
It's a dangerous business. Right, well, thank you all very much for taking part in this particular panel session. The time genuinely kind of flown by, and as before, I've still got questions left on my list I could be asking, but thank you all very much for taking part. Thank you.